Welcome to the press conference for Slumdog Millionaire, which is screening at the 2008 Toronto International Film Festival. Slumdog Millionaire is the story of Jamal, a Mumbai slumdog who becomes a taywala, the gopher at a company, and then is a contestant at the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's a thrilling ride. I'm thrilled as well to be able to introduce so many of the people who've brought us this extraordinary film. I'll introduce them to you starting at the far end of our group with Simon Beaufoy, who is the scriptwriter. Next to him, in the role of... Thank you. Well deserved, thank you. In the role of Latika, Ms. Frida Pinto. Hey. The Tiwala himself, Jamal Dev Patel. And the extraordinary Master of Ceremonies director, Danny Boyle. Perhaps to kick things off, just while you're catching your breath from this roller coaster, this emotional roller coaster, Danny, let me ask you what your tie was to Mumbai. Had you been there before? What was your impression when you got there with the intention of shooting this film? Wow.
I don't think there's enough time to go into that. It's such an extraordinary place. Those of you who've been will know what an effect it has on you. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I loved it. I'd never been there. My dad was in the army in Bombay and he served there with tens of thousands of men waiting to invade Japan, training, you know, and he used to go on and on and on about it, you know, and so that always stuck in my mind, and it obviously made an enormous impression on him. And he wasn't a big traveller. He's only ever been to Canada, where he also served in the RAF in Canada, training, and then in Bombay. And then Christian, who's over there, sent me this. He's the producer. Sent me the script by Simon, and it was like, I mean, seriously, it was like, it looked like it was about. I think the agent or somebody said it's about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you just thought, I don't really want to make a film about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You see it on the telly every week. Why would you want to make a film about it? And then I saw Simon's name on it, and I didn't know Simon, and but obviously I knew his work, and I thought, well, I should really read it out of respect for him. But page 15, that was it. By the time I got to about page 15, I was in. You know, so I rang him and said we should do it, and then we went to India, and that was my first experience of this extraordinary city, which if you haven't been, you should go to, and it's all life is there in all its beauty and ugliness, and I'm a complete devotee of it now. I could easily make another film there. I'd love to go back, and it has enormous heart. You know, there's an advertising thing for, you know, they've got a new Formula One team called Force India. It's not very good yet. They've just started in Formula One, and but their advert is 1 billion beating hearts. You know, and it's true. That's what you feel when you're there. You sense this humanity, and it's a wonderful place to make a film because of that.
You said it took you until page 15. Your audience is drawn in, sucked in from the very first image. But especially I assume people who haven't been there think of Mumbai, think of India, then one of the first things that comes to mind is the poverty, the grime, and there's none of that in the film. Or it's not presented in a depressing way. It's the energy that comes forth.
I mean, really, if you're going to make a film about this, it's about an underdog, really. I mean, that's, I guess, where the title comes from, Slumdog. Yeah. It's a kind of an underdog who fights the system, if you like, and triumphs in order for a greater goal than the money. I suppose if you're doing that, you've really got to put yourself in that position, really. And I've always liked to do that. I like to see it not from and I don't like to be an objective sense. I want to be subjective and inside it, and I want to shoot it from inside that. And I told the story the other day of this guy that we met in Dharavi, which is the world's biggest slum. And that word is very pejorative, the way we think of it. But there's 2 million people live there who run this amazing industries. You know, they organise their own society within Dharavi. And he said to us, just don't show us as poor, you know. You know, I've run this company for 30 years and I employ all these people, and, you know, and it's life going on, you know, and I wanted to present it from that point of view, not from a... And I think you can't, it's very difficult we bring such of our values, you can't take them there with you. They're inappropriate, really, and are not of a lot of value, really. They're working out their own values, obviously. So we wanted to try and view it from that perspective, from the perspective of the underdog, yeah.
When you wander around the slums, you don't get any sense of feeling sorry for anybody. It doesn't occur to you. I mean, everyone's there selling chickens, buying chickens. everything out on the street. Everyone's gathered around tellies, watching stuff. The kids running around, and yeah, they're laughing at you because you're dressed in too many clothes and you're all hot and sweating. And they, you know, if anyone's feeling sorry for anyone else, they're looking at you thinking, "Whoa, it's a bit of a hot day for you white guys." There's just, you never get that sense of, oh, poor them. And we really didn't want that in the film at all because it's just so inappropriate sometimes.
Questions, sir?
Hi, I'm Mohit Rajans from Toronto. Danny, when you were doing the Sunshine Rounds, you had mentioned that this project was in the works. I'm wondering about the casting. You know, it seems like that industry, the industry over in Mumbai, has so much to choose from, but you had, you know, very different characters in this film. How did you go about the casting and finding the right people to play these roles?
It's very complicated, the casting, because obviously we had this idea that you would see 3 ages. What we didn't want to do is that very kind of thing. You see it a lot on American shows where somebody who's clearly 29 makes up as a 17-year-old and pretends they're 17. And we wanted to actually cast 3 different groups of people. So that's complicated because you've got to match them. So you might find somebody interesting, but then you've got to make sure before you cast them that you've found someone who looks like them, who's also interesting at 13 and at 7. So it's complicated like that. We're very lucky to find these guys. I couldn't find a guy in India at all. And Dev, in fact, is from London. And the fashion, I said this last night, the fashion in Bollywood for the young guys, if you want to be a young actor breaking into the system, is to get in the gym 6 hours a day. And they get that look, you know, where there's so much muscle here, they can't lower their arms anymore. And they walk around, you know that look, we all know that look like that. And I didn't want anybody like that, because he's an underdog and you just want him to feel, like an ordinary guy, you know. And it's very true, my daughter, who's 17, said to me, you should see that guy from Skins. And she's a devotee of the programme Skins, which is quite a racy teenage programme. And I watched him in it, and he was very good, playing a kind of comic character. So then we met him, and we found Jamal, you know. And Frida, I saw her on a tape originally. We had a casting director there, Loveleen Tandon, and she sent me a tape of a load of girls, lots of people, but when I saw Frida, I had that thing that you get sometimes where you think, I'll bet it's her. And sometimes you can't explain that feeling that you get, you know? And you have to put her through the whole routine of casting and everything like that. And it's particularly true. I felt it with the little kid in Millions as well. When I saw him on a tape, I thought, I bet it's him. But you put them through the whole system, you know, because... Anyway, so we're very lucky to find them. So.
Can you speak about Anil as well, please?
Anil? Ah, yeah. Well, Anil Kapoor, if you don't know him, he's a major star in the Bollywood system. And this is his first English language film. I mean, everybody speaks, a lot of the guys speak really brilliant English, but they're very nervous about doing English language films. They're very kind of, it's a big step to sort of, you know, so he was quite nervous in that respect. But he did bring us, there's the audience in the quiz show didn't speak much English generally. They were people who, and so he rallied them, he kind of directed them really. You know, which they were flattered to have this Bollywood star directing them, you know, so I said, go on, and building them up. And he was a wonderful presence for us. Yeah. He's seen everything. I think in the 90s, he was the heir apparent to Amitabh Bachchan. He was like, so he's seen the highs and the lows of the system, and he's a producer as well now, so he's got a perspective on it. So he helped me a lot, you know, kind of steer my way through the system like that. And he didn't mind playing this absolute egomaniac, you know. So he's able to represent the system and poke fun at it a bit as well at the same time.
I think there was a question in front. No?
Hi, I'm Radhika from Toronto. I wanted to ask you, how did you manage to get the nuances of Mumbai life? So did your co-director help you, or was it just the script? Did you go there, get a feel of it? How did that happen? Because for someone that is from India, except for the fact that the cast spoke English, which jarred a bit, especially Dev, because he had a convent accent. But the rest of it seemed so very natural. So how did you manage to get the nuances of a city life?
We got a huge help. This casting director who I was mentioning was called Loveleen Tandon, and it was clear as we were casting and working the scenes with actors in auditions that I wanted her on the film every day. And so we gave her the co-director credit because I wouldn't have been able to make the film without her. And certainly the little kids who speak exclusively Hindi, obviously it was important to not just have a translator, but someone who understood what we were trying to do and could contribute her own to it as well. So we got her for that. You just have to throw yourself in, really, and hope that you capture a bit of it. It didn't really go with any... We went with a script, obviously, but we didn't go with an agenda. You know, you have to stay open to it, and I think it's an extraordinary country because I think they sense that, I think. I was always amused because we did see these people at the airports, like Americans, Germans, British businessmen, screaming at Indians at the airport saying, this is no way to run an airport, I could run this airport much better than you. And you could see the guys just looking at them thinking, go home, will you? And you just got to stay open to it, and it gives you back, you know, it just gives you back. It's such a generous place, you know. And so hopefully we caught a bit of it, you know. You can only ever get a bit of it. It's beyond capturing, to be honest, I think. But you get a little essence of it, I hope.
Please, sir.
Mr. Boyle, my name is Jason Dukunel. I'm from DNA in Bombay. How much, you gave a credit to Q&A by Vikas Swarup. How much of that book did you end up actually using in the script and the film?
That's very much one for Simon.
Well, I took mainly the initial premise, which was a very beguiling one, of the slum kid who goes on to the show, wins all the money, and then is immediately arrested because how can an uneducated guy from the slum know anything? So he's obviously cheated. So that was the premise, and I took that, but because Vikas's book is basically a set of short stories, really, 12 short stories, some of which are linked, some of which aren't. Some are just discrete little stories on their own. It's very difficult to turn that into a film because for me it's like eating too many puddings in a row. Each little discrete story on its own is very rich, but if it doesn't link up with some sort of overarching structure, it's too much for an audience to take each little independent story and start again from scratch. Then you go back to the game show, then you go back to the police station. So what I had to do, I went around the Mumbai slums, went around talking to people, found out what seemed to be the stories that everyone was interested in, read a lot of the papers, saw there was lots of gangster stuff in the newspapers, lots of trials coming up. All of that seemed to be very interesting and very much part of the culture. And I just absorbed as much as I could and then decided that this love story between the three people was going to be the heart of the film and the end of the film, and worked backwards, and then worked everything I saw around me in Mumbai into the stories. So the answer is really I couldn't take as much as I wanted from the book because it wasn't to do with the three people. I invented these three musketeers, was an invention of mine, and so I had to continue the story through with them.
You made really a marvel. I speak as somebody born and raised in Bombay. Instinctively, you've touched the heart of our problems, and I found one of the most touching moments is where they're looking at the high-rises, and one of them says, "That used to be our slum." It's a marvelous moment.
Well, that came out of me going back there. When I read the book, I went to visit and then thought, right, I'll go back again after having done the first draft. And I went back to an area which was slum, and it had this amazing place in, which I thought, will show Danny this fantastic location. And it had gone in 6 months. And there was a massive great tower block there in 6 months. And I kept thinking, no way, I must have got the wrong place. But in Britain, they'd have put up a sign in 6 months. There, they'd put up an entire tower block. And that's what's amazing. It's like a city in fast forward. And I really wanted to capture that, this sense of, it's like time-lapse photography of a flower opening or something. It's just racing to develop itself.
The tower is built for the slum dwellers rehabilitation.
Yeah, and
they then
they all rent them out and go and set up a slum somewhere else, yeah.
Frida, one of the characters in the film describes Mumbai as being the center of the world and saying that we're at the center of the center. You're the queen of this kingdom. And how important for you was it how this kingdom is depicted? This sense, for the first time, I think, in cinema, we have the sense of an incredibly dynamic society that doesn't need the rest of the world, or that is on its own.
Actually, first of all, Queen in the center of it, wow. So, yeah, I think it's really important in a way. And yeah, it's all Simon Beaufoy, completely, the way he scripted the entire thing, so.
Thank you. Question here.
Yeah, I'm Renu Mehta from the Indian Express. While I absolutely love Anil Kapoor, and I don't miss any of his films, why Anil Kapoor and not somebody like Shah Rukh Khan or Amitabh Bachchan? What made you select him?
Well, we obviously, to people who don't know, Amitabh Bachchan, who is probably the most famous man in the world, I think. It's very difficult to appreciate it in the West sometimes, but extraordinary fame and responsibility he has as the god of the cinema there. He presented the show when it first appeared in India. So they don't use like TV presenters. They've had two presenters. First it was Amitabh Bachchan, and then it was, I guess, what you would call his heir apparent, Shah Rukh Khan, presents it now, although it's on a lull, the show at the moment. And we went to see the show. I saw the show with Shah Rukh Khan, and there is something extraordinary that you see, which is the way people stare, hoping to capture the eye contact with the star, if they can. The intensity of the observation of the people was extraordinary. We talked to SRK briefly about it, but it was clear nothing was going to happen. And then we heard that Anil Kapoor was available and was interested and wanted to meet and talk about it. And that was wonderful, because I'd seen his work. I'd been told a lot about him, and I'd seen films of his like Tal, and we just jumped at the opportunity, really. To have somebody of that status felt perfect, really. Because it was neither Amitabh nor Shah Rukh Khan, it was neither of those people. It was a guy with an identity of his own, but he was also a big star as well. So it was true to the way the show was presented. And he was able to play with his own persona, so he does that lovely dance, you know, which is from one of his other films, you know, and he would say, oh yeah, if we were doing this in India, people would recognise that dance, you know, that is from another movie, you know, so he was able to play with it as well as present the show from a dramatic point of view, you know. So.
What about Irfan Khan?
Well, Irfan is one of those guys who has made the transition. He's made a number of English language films, and actually he's one of those actors who's managed to bridge both worlds, and he has a kind of truthfulness. Those two guys, in different ways, are our guides into the film, because the hero of the film, this guy, for a lot of the time has to shut up. He can't really say anything, you know? And so he's very quiet, and it's these guys who are guiding you through it, and they run a kind of traverse path, because the guy in the show, you think he's a big star and successful, and he turns out to be an awful man in a way with big ego problems. And the other guy, the police guy, Irfan, begins by torturing him, and by apparently just not really caring about him, and actually moves to a realisation, an appreciation of him, and the truthfulness of his quest, really. And he lets him back on the show. So they have, and it's nice to have those two guys to be able to be his guardians in a funny kind of way, the good guy and the bad guy.
Dev, you were in the position of coming to India. Was this your first time in India? Had you been there before? And what was it like for you then, bridging these roles as well? Play the West, a London boy working on an Indian film.
I remember going to India when I was like 7 years old for a family wedding, which was in Gujarat, which is it's a totally different ball game to Mumbai itself. And I remember not enjoying it, to be honest. I got bitten to death by mosquitoes, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. But growing up and going there with such a passionate crew, and I went on like location scouts and things like that, and got to see the most amazing things. It's so hard not to fall in love with it. And again, I did feel an enormous pressure being the only guy from London, having to play this kid who's grown up in the slums and witnessed all this, and it's his past events that paved the way for his future in a way. And it was amazing. I mean, it was an amazing learning curve for me, and I really, really enjoyed it.
And the best part of it is at the end of the film, he's become more of a Bombay boy than a London boy, to be honest.
Yeah, and how did you manage to shed off the British accent?
Sorry, we'll bring you the microphone. How did you lose was your question, how did you lose?
How did you manage to shed off your British accent and cultivate a convent?
I think, yeah, that was the hardest part, because I remember I didn't get a coach or anything like that, but we had Loveleen Tennyson, who is the casting director and co-director of this, and she helped along with all these guys, and I remember just having to like follow them around all day. And the hard thing is, because like the guy that plays my brother has a totally different lingo to Frida, And then she has a totally different lingo to this person, so I was constantly confused. So I just said, right, okay, I'm going to make my mind up, and this is going to be my new accent. So I think I ended up just neutralizing myself, so it's understandable to a wider audience, which is what we were trying to get to, at the same time slightly believable as someone who's grown up in that environment.
Which I think is fair enough.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Hi, David Friend from the Canadian Press News Agency. You have kind of handled a similar theme in Millions before, with a child sort of unexpectedly running into money. Is this something that you would like to explore? Or what?
Well, I come from quite a simple background. There wasn't much money, and so obviously I'm obsessed with it. Clearly, coming across huge amounts of money suddenly, and not having to make a big effort to find it. It's just a wonderful. I love the underdog idea. You realise when you look back a bit, you think you love, and that's why I didn't want to cast any of the guys in. I mean, we went to Bombay and we were determined to cast it entirely in Bombay, and we just couldn't find anybody because the guys that we were seeing didn't have that feel of being a loser, really.
So I guess it was my lack of muscles that got me the role.
So, but it's somebody that you can root for, you know, somebody that you can believe in and belong to, as he chases this kind of dream, really. And that's I guess what I kind of get drawn to, I guess, really. I think underdog, you know, great underdog story in an amazing place.
Questions? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? How was getting the rights for that?
Well, actually, extraordinarily easy, I think, because Christian Coulson, the producer, runs a company called Celador, which used to develop the program originally. And the guy who owns Celador has used his money to set up a film company, sold the program, and has used his money to set up this film company. So it's a great way of using the riches that show's generated to plough back into the cinema industry in Britain. And I think he very sensibly kept in the deal he'd done, he kept the rights to make a movie involving its name, you know? So we were able to get that relatively easily, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that right?
Sir.
Shut me up if I'm asking too many questions. Frida Pinto, are you from Bombay or not?
Yes, yes.
You are from Bombay?
From Bombay.
Why have you hidden your light under a bushel for God knows how long?
I was waiting for Danny Boyle
For all
to
of your
discover
15
me.
years. You were waiting for Danny Boyle. Have you got any experience on stage or in the cinema?
I used to do a lot of amateur theatre, but up until Danny Boyle, nothing.
What part of Bombay?
From Malad, the suburbs
Malad.
of Bombay, yeah.
Yeah.
So up until Danny, there was absolutely nothing.
And a final one for Danny. What on earth can we do to attract you back to Bombay to make
No problem. It's easy, really.
another film there?
We were saying the other day, it's the most brilliant setting for a thriller. And I think it possibly will be a thriller that combines the Bollywood and Hollywood. Because, I mean, there's a lot of Hollywood interest in it at the moment for all sorts of economic reasons. But the potential for a thriller there is just phenomenal. You have this extraordinary wealth and poverty, this extraordinary opportunity, this gap. You have basically a corrupt police. The corruption is endemic. You know, you've got ingredients for a thriller. Plus the fact you've got this incredibly glamorous industry, Bollywood, which is right at the centre of it, you know, with an enormous captive audience. So the ingredients for a thriller are absolute given, you know, and something that could cross over, I think. So I'd love to make another movie there, yeah.
Perhaps unconsciously, what you produce in this film is a primer about my city. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. Cool.
What was it like shooting in India? A country with such a great cinematic past of its own.
I think you have to be... There's a danger that you go... Especially cinematographers go, whoa, look at that. It's just, you know... And you kind of get... And I didn't want to be like that. And we did some tests early on film, on celluloid, and they felt very separate from it. They felt like they were staring at it like a book of photographs almost. The beauty of it, you know, the extraordinary colours and the vivacity of the life and just... And I didn't want that. So we used a digital system, a much more flexible system that allowed us to move with the action much more, so that you weren't standing back looking at it, witnessing it. We wanted people to experience it and feel it, smell it. You know, you can't do the smell, but, you know, get as close as you can to that. That was the idea of it, you know. And it is strange because there are times where you think, we're not going to get anything shot today, because there's so many people, which you can't move anybody. It's just, you can't control it like you do a normal film. You have to kind of just go with it. And then there's this extraordinary feeling, and it comes back to you. It suddenly gives it you back, and you've got what you need. But you have to have had faith in it, and trust that people we work with this woman, Loveleen Tandon, and another guy, the first assistant director on it, Raj, who was amazing, the way he dealt with everything. Because the other thing is that's extraordinary about India is that the actors are all doing about 6 films at once. When you work with actors in the West, like Dev, he's basically out of work most of the time. Everybody is. And when you give them a film, you get them. You get them heart and soul for the period of the contract. It's not so in Bollywood. They're doing 6, 7 other films. And they just tell you when they're available. You know, you don't say, well, we're shooting that scene in the police station next week. They say, no, I can't come next week. I can come in 2 weeks' time for 2 days. And and Raj is on these mobile phones juggling all these people and all their availabilities, you know. It's a big shift, that. It's a very odd. But again, you've got to go with it. You can't start banging your fist like men in airports trying to reorganize the country from a Western perspective. You know, it's like, forget it. You know?
It sounds like you're talking about karma, and it's certainly one of the lessons of the film, that of destiny. That's what you're saying the whole adventure was as well.
It is interesting, the concept of destiny, and you get I don't really understand it, to be honest, but you get a glimpse of it when you're there. You can sense it in a way. You can read as much about it as you like, but you sense it when you're there more. What I loved about the film, something that perhaps isn't apparent, is that most of these kind of films are usually about 80-year-old people on their deathbed, and they remember back, you know, and you live the film through their memories. But their memories are locked because they're 80 and they're dying. They're not prisoners of their memories, but it's locked. Whereas what's lovely about this is he's 18, and he's got the whole of his life in front of him, you know. So it's actually a freedom it gives him, his memories. It sets him free to walk forward into life. And I always loved that, and I think that's very Indian in a way, you know, that ironically, those memories release him, you know. So, anyway.
Hi, my name is Akemi from Japanese magazine Cut. Can you a little bit talk about soundtrack? I thought MIA song fit perfectly.
Say again, sorry?
Soundtrack, MIA song, I thought it's perfect.
Oh, it's, I mean, the thing is about working there is you get these gifts. Again, if you trust it, you get these gifts. So, Tabrez, who's there, who was our line producer in India, you know, he got me in touch with this guy, A.R. Rahman, and he's less famous than Amitabh Bachchan, but only a little bit. He's so famous, it's like, and he's like one of the top 30 best-selling artists in the world, you know? And we got in touch with him through Tabrez, and we sent him the film, and he said the oddest thing about it. He said, yeah, it's like Shawshank Redemption, which I still don't understand. I still haven't quite worked that out. He said, yeah, it's like a Shawshank Redemption. He said, I'd love to do it. And we got him. And he's just a genius, you know. The guy he's blessed. I mean, I wouldn't use that word easily. He really is gifted. And so we got to do the soundtrack with him, and he did a wonderful job for us. And so there's him most of the time. And then we use a girl called MIA, whose her song Paper Planes and she grew up, she's partly Sri Lankan, partly London, and she grew up worshipping A.R. Rahman, you know, absolutely idolising him. And then we asked her, would she come and sing on one of his songs? So she sings in the film as well. She raps at the beginning of the film as well. So it was lovely the way these things arrive. You know, it's extraordinary the way these things work out, you know. You can't really understand it or explain it sometimes, but they do. You know?
Questions? I was stunned when I saw it on screen, the Taj Mahal. We haven't seen it before. What was it like shooting there?
Yes, that's an interesting question. We had a bit of trouble at the Taj, to be absolutely honest. I think we didn't quite declare our absolute hand about what we were going to shoot there, and there were a few issues. Some of the local tour guides who didn't take too kindly to the portrayal of it, but it was meant to be fun and about survival, and so we cobbled together the sequence eventually with what we were allowed to shoot. You know, it's quite difficult. They're very understandably, it's very difficult to get near it to shoot because they're very careful about protecting it from any kind of damage. And they've had terrible stories of film crews putting down tripods on the marble, bang, you know, and you can imagine. So it's a very beautiful. If you haven't been, if you've if you ever think about going, go. I'm not very romantic, personally. It's the most romantic thing I've ever seen in my life. It's overwhelming, the sense of romance you get from it. It's 5 hours drive from Delhi, which nobody tells you. You think you can just fly in near it. It's a very interesting 5-hour drive as well, I'll tell you. But it's an amazing experience. If you want to make it, it's well worth it in your lifetime if you can get there.
Thank you. Questions?
Hi, I'm Craig Stone from New York. Your energy.
Would you mind speaking into the mic, sir? Thanks.
I'm Craig Stone from New York. I wanted to say your energy is contagious. It's very exciting. We're having our first film tonight as a world premiere, and we followed your career as well. And I was just curious, how long did the film take to make, and what was the post-production process like? And when you did the film, did you have a vision from day one to the final stud, or was it something you just played around with a little bit?
I can never answer that. People always say, is it what you imagined when you start? And it's like casting. I could never imagine anybody else playing these parts now. I'm sure there were other contenders for the parts, but you sort of go with each moment, and each moment you can never kind of reflect on it in a way. It sort of becomes what it is. So I can never imagine if it was that. I certainly know that we shot for 3 months, basically November, December, January, and I know that the post-production process was one of the most interesting I've ever done, because the idea of memories in it that's in Simon's script, once you got into editing with a really good editor, it's this guy Chris Dickens, very good editor, he edited Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, you could become quite liquid with the film. You could start feeding bits from elsewhere into the film, into it. You know, that just phrases could trick in a memory from somewhere, you know, which is like one of my favourite bits is when she actually finally gets to the phone and says, "Hello, it's me," and he says, "Oh, I'm guessing that's not your brother," and he says, "Who are you?" and she says, "My name is Latika," and you cut back to the girl in the rain when you first saw her, when they first met her, like that. So you can be quite fluid with the time scale. You know, they can infect forward and backwards across each other, and we developed that more and more in the editing as we. So it was very, very creative, the editing on this one, actually, I thought. Anyway. Good luck with the film. What's your film called?
At the Edge of the World.
Cool.
Thank you.
Very good luck. Are you going to be up here tomorrow?
My brother's the director. He'll be up there. I'm the producer.
Oh, cool. Good. Well, good luck, guys.
Hi, David Friend from the Canadian Press. I was just curious about your choice of parental figures in the film, and sort of that decision that a lot of them really were they would either deceive or betray the kids. Was that intentional, or?
It reminded me of Dickens in a way. These elements.
Mumbai is a very it's the modern version of Dickensian London. It's incredibly exciting like that. It gives a writer an access to and a kind of extreme level of storytelling that you get in Dickens. You get humour and tragedy and squalor and all these things packed in a very small space in a Dickens novel. And that sense of floating above naturalism that you get in Dickens is absolutely there in Mumbai. Everything's too bright, too noisy, the smell's overwhelming, the colours are overwhelming. And it gave me, as a writer who's used to writing in quite a naturalistic way, a sudden freedom to write almost in a melodramatic way. And you can, people keep saying, what genre is this film? I don't know, it's a Dickensian genre. I don't know, there are thriller bits in it, it's a love story, it's got funny bits in, and somehow it works in the way that those things do work in a Dickens novel. But somehow, I don't know why squeezing them all into one film works like this, but I think it's because it's India and it's because it's Mumbai. There's something extraordinarily heightened about that city that allows you to do that and get away with it.
And I guess that would make sense. That's where the parental thing. I see what you mean, like the figures like Maman who kind of blinds the kids, and those figures who apparently are looking after them actually turn out not to be that way. Yeah, that's very Dickensian kind of thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and also what you find out there, you find a lot of very tiny kids running around making sure they survive every day. And the 7-year-olds are looking after the 3-year-olds, and there's a 14-year-old in charge of the whole family. And that's how it is.
Questions? Was there ever a sense, or did you ever ask yourself, coming from outside, about taking this Indian novel and adapting it and making a film out of it? Was that ever a question that you asked yourselves?
Yeah, every day, that one. Yeah. Every day, really, because I mean, I think Simon was saying there's, obviously sometimes what happens is you live in this amazing city and maybe you need an outsider to come in and see it. I certainly know it's true of filmmakers who come. I live in London, and filmmakers who come to London and make a film. It's wonderful to see it sometimes because you see a different perspective, you know. But yeah, you feel a responsibility every day, particularly being British, because we have such a history in India. And one of the things I found extraordinary, I was expecting to be much more a sense of the old colonial past still existing, but it's basically gone. I mean, there's obviously some buildings and there's an affection still, I think, for the British, but it's basically gone. They're looking at the USA, Brazil, Russia, China. They are where they're looking at now, you know? You can feel it. It's like, you know, we're kind of history, really. So I was very privileged to go back and I felt that responsibility every day, not to really, yeah. So.
And Simon, what about you taking on this novel?
Yeah, very, very nervous about it, because it's all too easy for a bunch of white middle-class British people to parachute ourselves into the middle of a city and go and start talking about poverty, which would have been a great mistake. I mean, I think we got it right only because people from Mumbai have come up and said, you've got our city right, you've nailed our city, which is great, and a great relief to me, because if people from Mumbai were folding their arms and going, yeah, well, you would think that about it, wouldn't you? I think we would have really failed in our task. And that's why I spent a long time actually picking up stories from the streets and wandering around with a translator, chatting to people who were living on the sides of freeways and all of this, finding out that actually they weren't feeling very sorry for themselves. They were quite happy working on the building site down the road, earning quite a good living. And it was just very important to me to get that right and not come with a very, very preconceived notion of what wealth is and what poverty is and what we from the West think of all that. Yeah, but I was very nervous about it until basically yesterday when someone stopped me in the lobby of the Four Seasons and said, that was my city, you got it, you nailed it. And that's a real relief.
Questions? Dev and Frida, I'm sorry. What's it like taking on a role that two other actors have acted before? You're the third, the oldest characters of the same individual.
A lot of pressure, actually.
So much. Those little kids are amazing.
They're so natural and they're so innocent. Yeah. And when we watched them, we first watched a couple of their shoots, and then we had to go into shoots right away. And then I looked at Dave and said, oh my God, this is so much added pressure now, because it's just so good. Yeah. And now we have to live up to that. And we have to, or else the audience will just find the strange disconnect. And they won't believe that we were those kids once upon a time. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of added pressure, and definitely was Lovely and Danny's idea to watch the kids, to interact with them, to mingle with them before we get on to our work. So.
Same for you, Dev?
Yeah, I mean, watching them, I really wanted to step up again. I remember watching them for the first time, I was like, God, these guys are amazing. Because they're so natural. And I mean, they live in that environment, and especially for me coming from London, to watch these kids with their little gestures and their tongue clicks and their head wagging and things like that really helped me, these little things. And the way they interacted with the other actors, and Danny really tried to make them feel at home in their environment, was brilliant, because then for me picking it up was really good, really helped.
Do you have other plans, other roles in view coming up that we can look forward to?
None yet. None yet.
Thank you. We're extraordinarily grateful for your coming here, bringing this wonderful film. Thank you very much. Best of luck with it.
Thank you. Thanks very much.